Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me. Today, we're going to be talking about the work-life balance buckets. If you've been joining me for the last few weeks, we've already covered quite a few of them. We have a few to go. And today, I'm going to be talking about relationships, which, of course, is one of the most important buckets. Oh, I don't know, in my opinion. I was definitely put on earth to part of my soul journey, my soul contract is about relationships, which is why I'm, coach and healer. I do have this old TV back here. See that one? It's an old Sony. It even has like the thing you can hang it on the wall with. If anybody wants that, you can have it. You just have to come and pick it up. It's relatively heavy. And I have an old PlayStation and an old Xbox 360. So if anybody wants those, there's my free plug, my plug for giving away some of these old video gaming systems. The boys got a whole new system because their dad is amazing and takes really, really good care of them. So he brought them a new TV, and they're bringing their gaming system over from his house now. So that's super fun. Okay, so let's get into this fun stuff. Welcome, whoever's here with me already. I love spending this time with you. All right, so good morning. Let's get into it. You guys ready to go? So let's get into relationships. Is it better to give or to receive? How many times have you heard that through your life? I just want you to think about how many times you've heard someone say, is it better to give or to receive? And so often the answer that's given to us is that it's definitely better to give than to receive. But when you really start thinking about what is giving and what is receiving, they're actually the same thing. I remember this one time, a friend of mine had given me a haircut, and she was giving it to me for free. And I gave her a love donation of $40. And she was like, oh, no, that's too much money. You can't give me all of that. Good morning, Dagmar. And she tried to give me half of the money back. And I was like, why on earth would you give me half the money back? I said, look, imagine like this. Imagine it's Christmas and I just gave you 2 throw pillows that I thought that you wanted. And you said, you know what? Oh, no. You gave me too many throw pillows for Christmas. I just want one. You can take the other back. And she was like, that would be ridiculous. And I was like, exactly. It's the same way. I'm trying to give you what I want to give you. And if you're not able to receive what I'm trying to give you, then I actually feel bad, because giving and receiving is the same thing. You cannot give more than you receive. You cannot receive more than you give in one exchange. It's the same. Giving and receiving are the same. And the old biblical principle of it's better to give than receive actually says it's better to be in a position of giving than receiving. And so what that means is financially, it feels way better to be able to give somebody something than to have to beg, right? So that makes sense. So we don't want any begging going on in our relationships, of course. But we do want an equal exchange of giving and receiving. And so a lot of times what we notice in relationships is that people are really stressed out and they're going, man, I'm doing too much, and they end up feeling resentment. That's what I find with a lot of my clients. They feel a lot of resentment. They feel a lot of overwhelm. They feel a lot of anxiety. Ask yourself, if in your relationships, have you felt overwhelmed? Have you felt resentment? Have you felt like you give more than you receive? Have you felt like you're always giving and getting nothing back? If that's happening for you, it's because you're in an imbalance of giving and receiving. And so we want to get into a balance of giving and receiving. So what is giving? What is receiving? What does that even mean to you? When you start thinking about what giving and receiving is, you may find that they are pretty much the same thing. Allowing someone to give to you is receiving, right? So they're giving, you're receiving, but you're actually giving by receiving. Does it make sense for you guys? So many clients have ended up coming into my office with their hearts shut down because of this whole idea that I'm supposed to give and never receive. And if you give and never receive, you actually end up getting exhausted, and there's no room for receiving, and you actually end up with no more room for giving. You feel exhausted, and we end up sacrificing ourselves for others and feeling a lot of resentment. Dagmar says yes. So so many of my clients end up in my office with their hearts shut down because they've spent so much time giving and not allowing themselves to receive. So we have even learned to shut off the love that we have for ourselves. So in relationship, you can see how if you started to feel resentment or you started to feel exhausted, you might shut down that relationship. You might shut down your heart to another person. But what I find ends up happening is we actually get into a habit of shutting ourselves down, and we actually close our entire heart chakra down. And so now our heart chakra is closed down to not only the people out there that we're exhausted dealing with, but we actually end up closing our heart chakra down to ourselves and to our connection to the divine. And when that happens, you end up hearing yourself in your mind, instead of being lovingly communicating with yourself and saying, hey, you did a good job today, I'm so proud of you. Instead, you're hypercritical. You're looking for what's not working. You're looking for what you need to do better, and you end up feeling not good enough about yourself. And guess what ends up happening when you do that? You end up projecting it onto your partner. So if I'm not making enough money, then I look at my partner and I go, you're not making enough money, because it's very hard for us to look at and accept our own shame. It's a whole lot easier to point the finger over there at what you're doing wrong, you being my partner, instead of what I'm doing wrong. So as if you've been following along with the previous buckets, so I have this bucket theory. There's 10 buckets, and I think relationship bucket's number 6 or 7. I think it's 6. So this is the bucket theory. This is my own personal theory that I've been coming up with for about 20 years. So we start with looking at our own body pain. What's going on in my body to help me realize where I'm blocked, and then I can figure out where I'm blocked. And then we can start looking at our thoughts and how our thoughts have turned into beliefs, and what our beliefs, we can reprogram those thoughts and beliefs. We can start becoming our own loving parent. We learn how to redirect ourselves, and we learn how to take care of ourselves. And that's number 4. We learn how to take care of ourselves fully. So here we're learning self-love. Here we're learning how to take care of ourselves fully. And as we start learning how to take care of ourselves fully, we're setting boundaries in the world to protect ourselves. And as we start learning all of this stuff, we start to learn how to love and appreciate ourselves, fill up our own tanks first. Put your own oxygen mask on before you put it on the person that you're with. And then we don't allow others to take advantage of us or abuse us. And we are able to dive into healthy relationships at that point. So I think it's imperative to do the first of these 5 buckets first before you start doing relationship stuff. And today we're talking about relationships. We've already talked about parenting. We can also talk about business relationships. That's coming, so stay tuned. And so let's get into relationships. So, what are some of the biggest struggles that we see in relationships? Well, communication tends to be a big struggle, right? Raise your hand if you have ever struggled in communication. I think I've told you guys this story before, but I'm going to tell it to you again. My beautiful partner, Mike, he will say something like, honey, can you please wash the dishes? And in my mind, what I hear is, wash the effing dishes. And so I'm like, you know what? You're so demanding all the time, telling me to wash the dishes. And he's like, what are you talking about? I've never demanded anything from you. I ask you, can you please do the dishes? And I'm like, no, you tell me to do the dishes. And he's like, no, I've never told you to do. So what we realized together through our communication, talking about all of this, and some people struggle to have the talking about this conversation, right? That's what we actually mean by being able to communicate, to be able to sit down and get curious about what the heck is going on here, because he knows he hasn't been demanding, and I know he has been. So we start looking at what the heck is going on, and that's actually the communication piece. The communication piece isn't that I hear one thing and he says another. I mean, that's part of the communication piece, but actually being able to sit down with each other and hear each other and have a conversation and get curious and be open enough and be vulnerable enough and be intimate enough and allow yourself to be seen Because if I was just going to get defensive and be like, you just demand things from me all the time and that's it, we're not having a conversation, we would be really stuck. Dagmar says, yes, it's not the issue. Not the issue is the key, but to find out how each of us receives the message. Yes, absolutely. It's the how, and we're all perceiving things differently, right? If we all watch the same car accident, we're going to notice different things about the car accident because our perspectives are different and our way of thinking is different and our way of seeing the world is different. So good. I'm having Earl Grey tea. You guys like tea? Man, I love tea. Okay, so when it comes to communication, we're not only just looking at I hear him saying, do the damn dishes, and he's actually saying, can you please do the dishes? But we're also looking at the conversation around that and the getting curious. So let's see. So as we learn to give and receive love to ourselves, we're able to give and receive loves. This is the framework that we have for being able to give and receive love to others. So as I start working with that critical voice in my mind that says, Heather, do the damn dishes, then I can actually hear Mike say, honey, can you please do the dishes, instead of hearing him say, do the damn dishes. Because you see how that works? Like, that's my own critical inner thinking that has me hear him say it in a way that he's not saying it. And as I become more aware and as I become more conscious of what my thinking brain is doing, then I can start interacting with others in a way that makes a lot of sense. I can actually hear what they're saying instead of hear what I'm saying. Is that making sense to you guys? So what were you taught about love? Okay, so another piece to relationships is the aspect of what is unconditional love. We talk about unconditional love a lot in our culture lately. It's a big, word. It's a big phrase that's being kind of thrown around now because our parents, most of our parents, anyway, my generation and older, was actually taught that conditions, behavioral therapy was the way to raise children, right? So it's like, if you do good, then you get a cookie. If you do bad, then you get a punishment. That's conditional. Does that make sense? So it's actually behavior. It's conditioning behavior. And so when we talk about unconditional love, like, what the heck is that? So many of us were raised with these conditions for behavior because our parents were trying to get us to not jump on the furniture, or they were trying to get us to do our homework or whatever. And so our inner child, many of us as adults, we still have these inner thoughts of the inner child that are critical inner thoughts that are going, if you do good, then you'll get a cookie. If you do bad, then, and so things become good and they become bad in this whole judgment system we place on ourselves, and we become hypercritical of ourselves, which actually is very limiting when we start looking at consciousness and expansion and abundance and giving and receiving and all of this. So it's very possible that we learned manipulation, we learned control, and we learned conditions. And so I don't know how many of you women have tried to say to your husband, if you don't do this, then I will this, and it just didn't work out for you because your husband is not a child, and you can't put conditions on a man because they want to be free. It's just not ever going to work. So we have to learn how to love without this manipulation and without this control and without these conditions, even though this is how we were raised to get optimal performance of behavior from others. Am I making sense to you guys today? So as we learn to communicate effectively and we learn to meet our own personal needs first and not allow others to treat us badly, then we're able to begin to express ourselves courageously and authentically to each other. And this is actually what we're wanting to do for communication. Instead of control and manipulation and conditions, we want to authentically and courageously begin to communicate with each other fearlessly. So we want to allow others to begin to see us, and this takes a lot of courage because when you have the negative thoughts going on and you have all this inner criticism going on, it's very hard to stand naked in front of someone and say, look at me. because you're having so many negative thoughts and feelings about you're feeling so insecure and unconfident. Is that a word? Not confident. That you don't actually want somebody to see inside of you, because then they would see all of your flaws and all of your messy, and you don't even want to look at that, much less have somebody else look at that. But that's really what intimacy is. Into me, see. I let you see into me. All of the messy and all of the yucky and all of this stuff I don't want to even look at myself. I let you see it. That's truly what intimacy is, and it takes a lot of courage and a lot of bravery and the willingness to connect with your partner and the willingness to be intimate. So in intimacy, it's I allow you to see into me, and I allow myself to be seen, because I no longer feel not good enough. And we no longer feel not good enough because we've done the 5 buckets over here. We've looked at the body pain, we've looked at the thoughts and the beliefs, we're looking at our own self-love, we're starting to do our own self-care, we're setting boundaries around where we don't feel good so we can have that confidence, so we can let go of some of that insecurity. And when we have all this and it's really secure and it feels really good, then it's really easy to start allowing somebody to see into you, which is where true intimacy and communication begins. And now I know that I love myself and I'm worthy of having love from others. And if others don't want to give me that love, it actually has nothing to do with me. So if somebody doesn't want to love me, if somebody doesn't want to be in relationship with me, somebody doesn't want to communicate with me, somebody doesn't want to see into me, it has nothing to do with me if I have a big, old, wide open heart. Make sense? So as we learn what is our interpretation and how others are interpreting, we're able to hold the view of ourselves as the witness instead of the reactor. So if I'm able to watch the interaction that's happening between you and me right now, then I realize that doesn't have anything to do with me. It's just what's happening. And we're actually learning the same thing in bucket number 2 when we start looking at our thoughts and we're becoming the witness. We realize thoughts are just happening. And this interaction between you and me, it's just happening. And I don't have to judge it, I don't have to control it, and I don't have to manipulate it, and I don't have to try to change it. It is what it is, and I learn how to react or really respond in a way that's healthy for me and that feels good for us. So just a little recap. Basically, communication comes down to I love myself, I feel good about myself, I feel secure about myself. And my healthy relationship with you has everything to do with my healthy relationship with me. And as I'm able to think very nicely and clearly and lovingly about myself, I'm actually able to be in a nice, loving, open relationship with you. As I'm able to give and receive love inside of myself, I'm able to give and receive love inside of you, because what I realize is I'm not dependent on your giving to me. I can give and receive everything that I need inside of myself, and then my interaction with you just becomes this gigantic bonus. And it's beautiful, and it's fun, and it's loving, and it's playful, and it's interactive, and I don't need anything from you. I allow myself to meet my needs. I allow God to meet my needs. That's coming even later in the buckets. And so then really what it comes down to is I allow you to see me. I allow myself not to be defensive. I don't project all of my stuff onto you. I don't try to save and rescue and take care of you. And instead we have this relationship where I see you and you see me, and we get curious about each other, and we are courageous and brave about how we want to share together. And it makes a really beautiful, beautiful relationship. So if that sounds like something that you want to play with and you don't know exactly how to do that, come and have a conversation with me, because I'd love to show you how. I have created it with my partner. It's an incredible, amazing place to be. So I still have breakdown moments. I still have moments where I'm like, man, you're irritating and you're annoying and I don't know if I can trust you. And I mean, that's the human spirit. That's just being human. We aren't 100% confident in everything all the time. That's just not reality. The reality is sometimes I look at my partner and I'm like, what the hell are you doing? And it's how I learn how to interact with myself that actually keeps that balance and that peace. So, we're talking about work-life balance. What is balance? Balance is what happens internally. Balance is what happens inside of me. So if I'm having balance in my relationship with you, has everything to do with how balanced I feel inside me. Is that making sense for everyone? So, I could go on and on about, my relationship with Mike because it's so fulfilling and wonderful. And I'd love to tell you how I got there. Yeah, it's a journey, not an end destination. Yeah, so is happiness, right? So I think that we think balance or a happy relationship, or even like this thing like where I'm finding a home, right? My home is in Mike's arms. My home is having two little boys running around me asking me for food because they're hungry every 5 minutes because they're growing preteens. That's home. It doesn't matter what color the walls are. It doesn't matter how many square feet I have. None of that matters. Home is what's happening inside of my heart. It's a giving and receiving that's happening. And that's the relationship that I'm having with others. And that's the balance that I'm having. It's 100% inside of me in this moment. And now in this moment. And now in this moment, right? And so every moment that I'm having, that's where balance is happening. It's not happening tomorrow. It's not someplace I'm trying to get to. I'm not trying to get to balance. Once I check off all the things on the list, then I'll be balanced. No, it's how I feel in this moment as I'm checking off or not checking off the things on the list. Dagmar says, I'm learning from you and I'm developing the same relationship with Wayne. It finally feels peaceful inside of me. That's awesome. I love that you're learning that because it is something that happens inside of me. I can't control or manipulate or change someone else. I just can't do that. I get to accept them right where they are. And if I can't accept them right where they are, that's for me to figure out. Can I stay in relationship with someone that I can't accept? That's for me to figure out. I don't know if the answer is yes or no. Can I shape and shift my own beliefs to learn how to accept someone just the way that they are and love them just the way that they are? More than likely, whatever's happening, oh, here comes Mike. I'm still on. More than likely, whatever's happening outside of me that I'm blaming you out there for is what's happening inside of me. So if I'm looking at you and I don't like you, if I can't accept you, if I can't accept what you're doing, more than likely it has everything to do with what's going on inside of me that I can't accept. So that's it for me today. That's all I've got for you guys for the work-life buckets for relationship. If you want to hear more about it, I have a YouTube channel. All of these buckets are on Heather Hundhausen, the YouTube channel. I'm also doing them live every Monday at 10 a.m. on Facebook. So if you want to join me, if you want to ask questions, if you want to participate, come join along. And I will see you guys next week at 10 a.m. Thanks for joining me.
Bye, you baby.